Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakakadash. I want to give double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone that rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noise in this gospel, brought lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is a lesson through the spirit. I got two videos I actually want to play. This one that the brother, the Hopeful Elect 3, uploaded, and also I was sent the video the other day as well by one of the fellow saints, and it's going into basically the EID tags to track all livestock in the United States, starting with the cattle. And it's symbolic because when you go into the word cattle in Hebrew, it goes into goyim, whereas the small hats say goyim, which means cattle, and you people are basically nothing but cattle. You're slaves, you're sheep. Okay, well, you're cattle. Okay, you're beasts. And you have to be told and led and taught what to do, because clearly you're incapable of governing yourselves. And this is the mindset of the elites. We got to enslave these people. So I feel like it's symbolic with them tracking all the livestock. And this is just a mass step towards the mass implementation of the MOTB, which is the RFID micro C-hip. Okay, well, we're just going to call it the charagma. But we know, according to the scriptures and prophecy, that the charagma has to be instituted before America or Babylon the Great is set to be destroyed in our deliverance. So this is a prophecy that must come to pass, and they're already starting with the cattle, which in fact I already thought they were chipping cattle a long time ago, because they had what they called they got what they call awls on them, which if you go out to farmland or you go out to the country and you see the cattle out there, they have like these awls in their ears, which represents that they belong to a particular and they have ownership, so to speak. And now Esau wants to fit these cattle with the digital awl, which is a device. Okay, so I'm gonna play this video and then I'm gonna play the other one, and I'm gonna interject in between it. We're gonna get a couple of precepts and that'll be that. So here we go.
Recently, the USDA came out with a law stating that all cattle and bison in the United States have to have EID tags. We have 6 months to comply with this new law. What is an EID tag? It's an electronic identification tag. That tag stores all the information about our cattle. It has schedules. It has feed schedules. It has history. Now, while that sounds really good on paper, there's a part of me that believes this is for a greater purpose. Most people are processing their livestock through federal or state inspected facilities. Part of me believes that in the future, with these tags, they're going to be able to see everything that you've done with that cow. And if you don't do what they want, will they let you process? I don't know.
Meaning that your cow going to have to undergo all types of injections, pricks and all that other stuff. You got to get it inspected, because the government, they control everything. And that's what government means. Government means mind control. Govern means to control. Ment means mind. So it makes sense now that they want to track in everything, because they want to know who has who. And if you don't get the MOTB, then you're not going to be able to have a farm. You're not going to be able to have livestock. You're not going to be able to sell or a particular trade, or you're not going to be able to even move around. And this is the whole plan of the elites, man. Okay, so they're starting with the cows and then the chickens and anything else you want to earn. Then sooner than later, you got to go get your car registered. You got to get it microscopically tagged. You got to get your vehicles, your car keys. And I'm just throwing things out there, but this is the way society is heading to. Okay, and this is what John the Revelator, or the Apostle John, saw on the Isle of Patmos when the Lord gave him the vision of the mass implementation of the MOTB, or the charagma. But it's so funny that, and ironic how other camps, they don't seem to see this prophecy. Okay, and like the apostles always said, they either took the bag or the Lord is just completely not dealing with them. And I'm gravitating to both, because you got to have a certain amount of fear. You got to have fear of the Lord to teach the truth, man. Okay, and if you're not teaching truth and you're not going into the prophecies and speaking on what's to come, then you don't have the fear of the Lord, because the scriptures say the beginning of wisdom is the fear of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. And clearly these men and these other groups do not have the fear of the Lord, because this is a major prophecy which is going to determine who's going to be delivered and who won't. But yet men are sweeping it under the rug. So it's easy to say that a lot of guys are gonna succumb to this prophecy and they're not gonna make it out on the other side, man. So, hey, call Allah Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai for setting us up with leaders that actually wants to teach the scriptures, man, because this is the plan of the elites. All right. This is the book of 2nd Ezra 16. We're gonna get straight to the point. It says, for behold, 16, and let's start at verses. Matter of fact, let's start at verses 67. It says, behold, Yahweh himself is judge. Fear him, okay? As we mentioned, fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? And guys don't have the fear of the Heavenly Father because, the Lord is long-suffering. They have that sentiment, well, he haven't done anything to us yet, so he must be with us. And that's according to Micah, the 3rd chapter, man. And I believe Jeremiah, the 5th chapter. But it goes, leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall Yahweh lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble. Okay, and that's that's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be under the protection of the Almighty, because we understand that there's going to come a time, unlike any other time on earth, that we're getting ready to go through. Okay, and not just us, all these people that's here in Babylon and around the world. Because what I'm finding out now is that you got riots in Russia right now. Okay, you got protesters, and the Lord's will, that be my next video. The protesters, again, on these college campuses, and the fact that the government or the Senate or Congress voted, I believe it was like 393 to 90 on an anti-S bill, that they want to stop people from speaking out against these small hats. And I believe this is why a lot of those particular riots and stuff like that are taking place on college campuses, because they need a narrative to push so we don't speak out against the small hat. And that's what I'm getting from all this. You see what I'm saying? Because they know that you Americans are too docile and too stupid to fight back and to understand what's going on around you. So therefore, they got these Soros paid Antifa agents out there, I'll say it that way, to stir up controversy, to make it seem like a particular group of people is being discriminated against, so they can be justified on passing provisions for those people, so the truth can get caught, so the truth can stop being spoken. Because the reality of it is, they don't really care about the small level small hats. They ain't nothing but just going. It's the elites that they don't want to expose. Okay, because information is coming out how these major corporations are basically taking bribes, and they're taking money and tax money from the people, and they're basically sending your money overseas to help a bunch of people that can give two shits about you, man. In funding wars and forever wars and chemical warfare, they have to set up agents to come against that, so to speak, But it says here, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they should take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols. Okay, and we're gonna see that in the next video. And I'll come to the conclusion that I'm gonna just play the next video at the end of the video, because it's an 8-minute video, and I don't want to drown out the video longer than what needs to be to make the point, because the point is straight simple. They're gonna fit people with this microscopic tag, man, with this charagma. Okay, and that's the next major prophecy. All right, and it says here, they should take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols. And they that consent unto them should be had in derision and reproach and trodden underfoot. Okay, so, hey, they going to open up these FEMA camps. They're going to put out certain legislation that if you're not complying with government mandates to accept this MOTB, then you got to be taken off into a camp, and you are to remain there indefinitely until you decide to comply with the government mandates. And this is the society we coming into. Okay, it's called a dystopia or draconian. Okay, we're already in a dystopian society because you can't do shit. And it says, for that should be in every place, and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord, and they should be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, which is the Israelites. It says, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses, man. Okay, and these times are quickly coming upon us, because I'm gonna tell you like this: if Creepy Joe or Sleepy Joe, whatever you want to call him, gets another term, then hey, I can see them going full draconian with that, because it seems like Biden is putting more hell on the people in America, but he's assisting other people in different countries. Like now, those people in I think, was it Gaza or Palestine, one of them. But basically, he wants to open up an asylum over here, or what you call seek asylum or refuge. He wants to bring them over here for asylum, basically seeking refuge to be safe, so to speak, because their country is war torn right now. So basically now they're coming over here to the state, which they're probably already over here. But they coming over to the States, and basically they're going to live free off taxpayers' money, which is going to cause more and more conflict among the American people, you know. So, yeah, this thing is being set up to fall. All right. So, also, it was an article here, because this all ties into it. It says, bank warns of collapse of dollar system is nearing elite, prepared to roll out CBDCs. Okay. And this ties right into everything that we're reading. Okay, now this may be a different lesson, but it's along the same lesson. So technically, man, I mean, I can tie this into this lesson, but I want to break it up into a different lesson. So I'm going to actually come back and go into this article and a latter lesson. But it's going to be around the same thing, because we know that Esau Edom is going to micro, or he's going to charagma things in classes, you know, with the cattle or animals, and then, you know, the purchases, the goods, the products, the vehicles, and then soon to be the people. But I believe that the charagma of people will come once the economy collapses and they roll out the CBDCs, which the MOTB will be integrated with this CBDC. Okay, from what particular reports have mentioned. So anyway, go here. This is the book Isaiah 14, and I'm gonna start at verses. Let's start at verses 3, and it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve." Okay, because we're in bondage right now. The fact that you have to have a social security card, you have to have a goddamn state ID, a driver's license, and a birth certificate proves that you ain't nothing but a slave. You know, so they're able to dictate how many taxes you pay, how much you owe, what your rent's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Your car knows. This is all a slave-based system. Okay, we supposed to be in the sovereign nation. We supposed to be a sovereign nation, free of any dominionship of any heathen, man. But where are we? In a land of captivity. Clearly, we in slavery. But it says here, "And thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how have the oppressor ceased?" And who is the oppressor? Esau, the golden city, ceased, because he wants to chip the animals. He wants to chip vehicles. He wants to chip your apartment complex. He wants to charagma you and everything that you own. That ain't no way to live, man. So they can tax you to death. And it says, "And thou shalt take up this proverb," which proverb goes into a saying, "against the king of Babylon, and say, how have the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased." It says, "For the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked," which the staff goes into their power, "and the scepter of the rulers. And he who smote the people in wrath with a continued stroke, and he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindered." Okay, because he's being brought down. As he's setting up this NWO, the Lord is swiftly bringing his devil down. And it says, "And the whole earth is at rest and is quiet, and they bring forth its singing. Yea, even the fir trees rejoice at thee, and say, the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow has come up against us." He even wants to put fucking charagma in the trees, man. Oh, well, I need the MOTB, the trees, to make sure that the trees ain't creating creating enough pollen or whatever. You know, some madness that this man is always involved in, man. You know, this dude is a damn demon, bro. And honestly, I'm getting tired of Esau, bro. Like, it's to the point. And Revelation 14:9, it says, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive this mark in his forehead or on his hand, the same should drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation," which is going to be those missiles. "And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy Lamb." No, the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb. And a simple-minded Christian would think this is talking about hell. But this is not. This is actually talking about when America is destroyed, which will be the lake of fire. It says, "And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the charagma of his name." Okay, so this is where we're at in prophecy. Once this thing finally comes to pass, then everything else moves quickly. You know, there was another precept I was thinking about. Because how the hell do you want to MOTB the animals, man? I mean, even the animals are in captivity, man. It's crazy. But anyway, I'm going to end it there, giving all praises and glory and honor as due to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai. The Lord's will you edify into the next lesson. Shalom.
U.S. Senate passes a seemingly routine spending bill. Joe Biden signs it into law. A government shutdown is averted, but then later you learn that included deep inside of this, again, seemingly innocuous bill is a provision to track beef cattle. Specifically, included in this massive spending bill is a $15 million outlay for the purchase of electronic RFID tags for cows and bison. Now, while seemingly random and easy to ignore, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, he doesn't see it that way. Instead, after learning about this provision, he issued a warning about how these ear tags might eventually be used to electronically track livestock across the entire country in an effort to limit the consumption of beef. Here's specifically how he laid out the threat in a Twitter post. Quote, "Hidden in this week's omnibus, lobbyists got $15 million to implement electronic tracking of all cattle in the U.S. No law authorizes this. It will be used by the Green Agenda to limit beef production and by the corporate meat oligopoly to dominate small ranchers." Now, there is obviously a lot to unpack here. The specific provision that he's referring to within the spending bill is this one right here. It's a short paragraph that's incredibly easy to miss, especially given the fact that the actual spending bill is about this thick. But here's what the relevant paragraph says. Quote, "The agreement directs the Department of Agriculture to continue to provide the tag and related infrastructure needed to comply with the Federal Animal Disease Traceability Rule, including no less than $15 million for electronic identification (EID) tags and related infrastructure needed for stakeholders to comply with the proposed rule, use of electronic identification ear tags as official identification in cattle and bison should that rule be finalized." Now let's unpack what this actually means in plain English in order to give you a real sense of what's going on here. To start with, back in the year 2013, the USDA passed a rule called the Federal Animal Disease Traceability Rule. And just for your general reference, even though it's technically called an administrative rule, it actually does have the force of law. Because as it currently stands, rules that are created like this by federal agencies, such as by the USDA, in practical terms, they have the same power as laws. You can call them laws made by people we never voted for. That's called the doctrine of Chevron deference, and it is actually being currently challenged at the US Supreme Court, but at the moment, this is how it works. Regardless, getting back to the actual rule, as the name suggests, the stated purpose of that rule, that particular rule, was to be able to track livestock across state lines in order to limit disease outbreaks. Here's how it's described over in the Federal Register. Quote, "Under this rule, unless otherwise exempted, livestock belonging to species covered by the regulations that are moved interstate must be officially identified and accompanied by an interstate certificate of veterinary inspection. The purpose of this rulemaking is to improve our ability to trace livestock in the event that disease is found." And so this particular rule, it pertains to the movement of livestock from one state to another. And it covers many species, including pigs, goats, horses, poultry, cows, and bison. And in terms of cows and bison specifically, here's what it says in relevant part. Quote, "Requirements would cover all sexually intact cattle and bison aged 18 months and over, dairy cattle of any age, and cattle and bison of any age used for rodeos, recreational events, shows, or exhibitions. Because they tend to live longer than feeder cattle, move around more, and have more opportunities for commingling, thus presenting a greater risk of spreading disease." And so right off the bat, I want to highlight that Congressman Massey's statement that all cattle in America will be tracked is not accurate. Under the current framework, cows that don't move across state lines, as well as feeder cattle, will not actually be tracked. And just for your reference, feeder cattle refers to young cattle under the age of 18 months who are getting fattened up at feeding box. And so in terms of the food supply, it's mostly dairy cows and cattle above the age of 18 months who move across state lines that are covered by this particular rule. And so since the year 2013, the way that cattle have been tracked under this rule is through an 11-digit ID tag that's attached to their ear, meaning that in order to be eligible for interstate travel, cattle must have these 11-digit tags attached to their ears. And if you actually want to read them, you need to get pretty up close to the cow in order to see the number. Now, as you can imagine, that is rather inefficient, and it's hard to streamline a process when you're dealing with a lot of livestock. And so because of that, last year, the USDA proposed a new rule, or rather, it's actually an amendment to the existing rule. The amendment is called Use of Electronic ID Ear Tags as Official ID in Cattle and Bison. And just like the name suggests, this amendment, it will require that the tags on cattle not be just normal tags with an 11-digit number, but rather RFID tags. That way they can be scanned remotely without having someone get up close to the animal. The idea is that this new system, it would streamline the tracking process and take a lot of the human error out of the equation. Now, like most federal agency rule changes, this one was put out for public comment. And if you head on over to the Federal Register website, you'll see that this particular proposed rule, it has garnered well over 2,000 responses, with many of them coming from small and mid-sized farmers saying that this rule will disproportionately affect them, since larger corporate farms can absorb the cost of equipping ID tags for all their cattle, while family farms, for them, it might be a huge burden. Here's, for instance, what a pretty good representative comment read. Quote, "As a person who has worked in small and medium-scale agriculture and seen firsthand how challenging it is to not only find a USDA slaughter facility within the same state, but get an appointment within a year, I'm completely sure that this rule would disproportionately affect small and medium-sized meat producers." And so, as is the case with most government regulations, this one will likely favor large corporations, and it'll just add to the cost of doing business for small family farms, which might inevitably, alongside the other myriad of red tape, lead to more consolidation within the beef industry. Now, the comment period for this proposal ended last April, but with the inclusion of this $15 million outlay in the federal spending package, well, I wouldn't be surprised if you see this proposed rule becoming finalized in the very near future. But even if it does, it won't actually change the parameters for which cattle and bison must be tagged. It'll just require those tags to be electronic chips. And so, on the one hand, the claim that the federal government has a plan in place to track all cattle in America is not true, at least for now. But that's not to say that it won't be true in the future, and that this is just the first step in that direction. Perhaps what Congressman Thomas Massie was alluding to in that statement is the trend, just like with cell phones. Everyone gets them in order to text, make phone calls, and browse the web. But then on the flip side, a few years later, they're now used to track everyone all the time by the federal government as well as the police. Likewise, today you might be putting electronic RFID tags on all cattle that go state to state. Tomorrow, the electronic tags will be required from all cattle, regardless of whether they go state to state. And then 10 years down the line, when the anti-meat lobby gains power, well, those tags will be used to lower meat consumption in general. But of course, that's getting out there into the realm of speculation, which is outside the scope of this program. We stick to the knowable facts, and the fact is that at this moment, this $15 million earmark is for electronic tags to be placed on cattle who travel interstate in order to stop the outbreak of diseases. If you'd like to go through the notes from today's episode, I'll throw them down into the description box below this video so you can peruse them if you're the type of person that likes to dig into the weeds. Also, if you want to get a little bit deeper into this subject of the war on meat, I would highly recommend, if you haven't checked it out already, our awesome documentary called No Farmers, No Food. In it, we expose the globalist agenda, which is handcuffing farmers across the entire world and might very well lead to real food shortages in the near future. If you want to check out that awesome documentary, which I hope you do because it took us well over a year to put all that research together, well, the link to it will be right there at the top of the description box below. I hope you check it out.